right. Welcome to another episode of Only Comics. I'm Mike. This is Adrian.
Good morning. Good morning.
And we are not experts, right? We're not. But we thank you for joining us on this ride for the next, hour and a half or so. So we're going to take you through a ride on the multiverse, give you our opinions, our takes on a lot of things that are going on. There's a lot of news this week, Adrian, but as per usual, for lately anyways, it's predominantly Marvel.
Okay.
DC is, you're repping the DC today, though. I see that.
Sure.
And just want to let everybody know again, I know we always say this when you wear that, it's not a Flash hat.
It is not a Flash hat, and we don't hate DC.
We don't.
They just suck most of the time.
Just most of the time. We got some good news this week, though, Adrian. So, you notice my hat?
Yep.
And then the other thing is, you notice my shirt.
I see.
You know what it says?
Twerk. That's like some
Whip.
Spider-Man web stuff, right?
It's like
Okay.
It's I perfected it because I was actually trying to explain it to my wife. She thought it was. She's like, "What is that?" And I had explained the word, the whole deal. But that's. Are you a fan of that in the comics? Like when they write out the noises and you kind of like make them in your head.
I've never really thought about it.
Yeah.
But I've experienced this for so long. It's just in the background.
Yeah.
It's like it's part of the art to me now.
Yes.
So it would be odd to not see it.
Right.
So it kind of like helps you get immersed into what's going on in the comics.
Yeah. And I feel like, I feel like it was done a lot more in older comics. Like
I agree.
I don't think you see it as much now. And I appreciate it because like if when you read that, you can almost hear that sound in your head. Right. Like it's pretty cool. So but the reason why I bring up the merch, Adrian, is we've had a lot of people asking, and especially on TikTok in the comments, well, can I get that hat? Can I get that shirt? And the good news is as of right now, you can go to onlycomicsmerch.com, support the show, and buy some of this cool-ass merch. We got this blue Only Comics hat right here. I'll show you a few of these hats real quick. I think this is like, I'll hold it. That was your personal favorite, huh, Adrian?
Right.
Put that one. We got this one here. This one comes in a handful of different colors. Nice little embroidery on there. This was your personal favorite, right?
Yep, like that.
This one here also comes in different colors. And you know what? I don't know if you knew this, Adrian. This is a surprise here for everyone. So we got Only Comics merch, but we also have some officially licensed Marvel merch.
Nice.
Like I worked out. I called Kevin. I was like, Kev, I know y'all are watching the show. I know you're taking a lot of insight from the show, and it's working, the stuff that they do take, right?
Okay.
I said, what if you let us put some only Marvel merch on onlycomicsmerch.com? And he was like, yeah, cool, it's straight. But that's actually not what happened. There's a Shopify plugin where you can do that. So we got this one here, which I've worn here. I got some some fans of that shirt. Mm-hmm. The one I'm wearing, the Thwip shirt. You buy a Thwip shirt on there, Adrian? Right, and then you got this stuff here, real quick.
I don't know if you should say that in public, dude.
Probably not, right? Yeah, just shirt right here.
Just let them figure it out.
We got this one. We got this in black, all different colors. I'll show you one more here. Boom.
Nice.
And then last but not least, we got hoodies.
Very nice.
There you go. So
we couldn't strike a deal with DC. They mad at us?
No, DC. I tried to call James Gunn, and I don't know if the phone is hooked up in his garage where they're shooting all this stuff. So I don't know, dude. Nope, we could not work it out with DC.
It's all right.
But I would love to. We are, like you said, we are fans of DC.
Sure.
I'm a big Batman fan.
Sure.
Right. Mm-hmm. You're a big Batman fan. You're a big Flash fan.
Yep.
Not the Ezra Miller variant.
Absolutely not.
So, anyway, let's get into some of this news, dude.
Let's do it.
All right, so we like to go through the kind of last week of news and rumors in the comic book world. There's a lot of X-Men talk, and this is kind of, I call this an X-Men themed episode, Adrian.
Okay.
Both of us pretty big X-Men fans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, were you more a fan of X-Men comics or Avengers comics when you were like heavy into comics growing up?
Both.
Really?
Because I like them for different reasons.
Okay.
So I would buy both of them.
Yeah.
I was even though I like Fantastic Four a lot, I didn't really get into the Fantastic Four comic books.
Okay.
I just used them as reference because they interacted with so many other cool villains and stuff like Doom and stuff like that. So.
Got it. I gravitated more towards X-Men comics. I think I kind of got more into Avengers after the MCU, to be honest. I was Spider-Man, X-Men, and then Batman were kind of my main focus. But
Sure.
a lot of X-Men this week. So we saw the Deadpool Wolverine trailer a few weeks ago, right? And, you know, on that, I hope I wish for once that we could get like minimal trailers. You know what I mean? Like we got that one. I'm sure there'll be one more, but like, what if we could just leave it at that? Because like you say, a lot of times the movie gets spoiled almost in these trailers.
Right.
You know, they did that with the Doctor Strange movie. They spoiled the whole shitty Illuminati scene. You know, like we knew Professor Xavier was in it before. Like that would have been a cool surprise. Even though the scene sucked, it would have been a cool surprise versus everything. So I hope, you know, we don't see much more.
Well, it's not only do they spoil different scenes, but they show so much of it. It feels like, why do we even need to go to the movies? I've seen the movie already,
right,
through the commercials.
Exactly. But in this trailer, I don't know if you remember this specific scene, but there was a shot, almost like a silhouette of a bald individual sitting in a chair, to where it kind of gave you the vibe it could have been Charles Xavier, right? But they confirmed, and the way this was confirmed was there was some Culture Crave, some website looked up a copyright website and saw that an actress's name, it was something Corin, was tied to the character Cassandra Nova, which is Charles Xavier's evil twin sister. So they've confirmed that this is who this individual is, who's, I guess, going to be one of the main villains in Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever heard of this character?
I've never heard of Cassandra Nova. I think this is just a spin to make Xavier more interesting. You know, maybe Clark Kent should have an evil twin too, because he's uninteresting as Superman. So you know, in the reading they say that, you know, most of the villains from the X-Men were from the 60s and 70s. You know, so long standing. Magneto, people like that, right? The Hellfire Club.
Yep.
So this is a relatively new creation.
Right.
I don't know exactly when they came up with Cassandra Nova, but this is relatively a new creation. So I think it'll be interesting how they spin it.
Yeah.
But I'm really not excited about it. Only because I've never heard of the character.
Got it.
So there's no anticipation about, you know, what they're going to do with her, how they're going to spin her, how evil they're going to make her, or how successful the acting is going to be. Yeah.
I don't know this actress. But so to your point, to your question, when she was created, 2001.
Okay.
And the character is basically the origin was Xavier's mom was pregnant with twins, and in the womb he pretty much realized that this twin was evil. Right. Xavier had his mutation already, apparently.
Wait a minute, wasn't she like some astral?
She survived in the astral plane,
right? And probably possessed the sister or
something like that. Yes.
Hey, come on.
He picked up on that. He killed her in the womb. So Xavier was born. Cassandra was stillborn.
Right.
And they said she survived in a sewer, pretty much, and the entity was still alive in the astral plane and somehow formed this body and came back later in life. I know it's a crazy freaking origin.
Wait a minute, she survived in a sewer, so the mom gave birth to Xavier and this stillborn child in a gutter?
No, I'm assuming because the child was stillborn, they disposed of the body, maybe. I don't know. Probably way too much for the MCU. I doubt we'll see that origin.
Right.
She's just probably going to show up. Now, the other thing is she's not in a wheelchair. Xavier is in a wheelchair. So I'm not that, but, you know, they're not, I guess that's not a similarity they have. They have similar powers, I guess.
And clearly they have similar head structures.
Yeah, they go to the same barber, as people say. All I know, pretty powerful villain. And then it's tied, you know, to the X-Men, obviously. So I feel like this Deadpool movie is going to have a lot of X-Men references, and they've already kind of confirmed it's like the Fox version of No Way Home. So, you know, tons of other X-Men could show up. Now, do you think Xavier is going to show up?
Well, clearly he's showing up in his sister, but he himself, I don't know. I just hope they do this right, dude.
Yeah.
I really don't care who shows up.
As long as they do it right.
As long as they do it right. As long as it's entertaining. As long as they're like, really, this is not over with yet, kind of a deal. I just want a good movie.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, you say that, but what if Captain Marvel showed up?
Like I said, I just want a good movie.
Gotcha. But yeah, no, I'm with you because the problem with the X-Men though is we haven't seen them portrayed properly on screen that much.
Right.
There's a lot of X-Men movies, Fox, and there's a lot of decent ones. There's a few really good ones. But they hadn't been really consistent, Like someone said in the comments last week when we were talking about Sinister, they mentioned, well, Sinister was teased at the end of X-Men Apocalypse. And, I was thinking, yeah, he was, and I'm so glad we never saw him on screen because I think Fox would have fucked it up. Just like they did with with Apocalypse.
Oh my God, yeah.
Dude, was that not one of the worst villain portrayals you've ever seen?
I don't even want to talk about it, dude. It was bad, though. It was bad. It's like Colossus bad.
Oh, see, I like the Colossus. Now you're taking digs.
Agree to disagree.
Yeah, agree to disagree. I'll have to add that one in there. So, anyways, Cassandra Nova confirmed to show up in Deadpool 3 or Wolverine and Deadpool. You know, I was watching animated series the other day, I wasn't. I'm sorry, I was reading Secret Wars. You ever read that original run? The one in like the 80s?
Yeah, I recall picking up the mag. I don't remember the contents of it, but yeah, it was like the covers were very complex.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was Marvel's first big event comic. And in that, when they go to the battle world where the Beyonder, pulls all these guys or whatnot, Xavier can walk. And there's times like, I mean, you've read a lot of X-Men. There's times in the comics where he could walk. There's times where he's in a wheelchair. I've always felt like, depending on which Xavier we got, he was different. Like, it was a different personality. I feel like he was kind of more of a dick when he was walking. Did you ever pick up on that, or am I crazy?
I never really gave it that much thought.
Yeah.
But the fact that he can read everybody's mind, what everybody's thinking.
Right.
I guess he figures that he's at the top of the scale. But I'm even better if I can walk. So there's nothing that you can do that I can't. Kind of a portrayal.
Yeah. And in the comics, this is something that I think differs a lot from the movies. In the comics, Xavier is challenged a lot by other X-Men. Like, they're not like in the movies they treat him like a saint, I believe. And then in the comics, he's pretty selfish at times. With the whole "my X-Men," like you made a comment about Cyclops saying that in the trailer. Well, Xavier said that shit all the time in the comics.
Well, I mean, he was taught, he was shaped. Cyclops was shaped by Charles,
right?
So that's why he's like, "My X-Men, come to me," or something. Yeah, whatever bullshit he said.
But in Secret Wars, there was a lot of kind of back and forth between him and Storm, because at this point Storm was the leader of the X-Men, and because Charles was walking and because of the level of threat this whole thing was, he was kind of taking charge, and she pushed back a little bit. But it was just cool to see that, because I just, you watch so much of the movies and it kind of almost, you forget about some of the, intricacies of these characters in the comics.
Right. I mean, I've seen a quite a bit of pushback.
Yeah.
Especially from the top ones. Cyclops, Storm, Wolverine just
even Wolverine at time, yeah.
So yeah, that was a lot of pushback. And Charles could have, like made him take a nap or something like that. But he's like, all the goody two shoes and all this other kind of stuff. But whatever.
In other news, John Semper, a writer for Spider-Man the Animated Series, expressed interest in an X-Men 97-esque reboot for Spider-Man. So, did you ever watch the Spider-Man animated series?
I did.
Yeah,
I did. It was pretty good for the time.
Yeah.
Doc Ock in motion was my first experience seeing him like that, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I didn't watch it as much as I watched the X-Men animated series, but I did watch a good chunk of it. And what I liked about it is they adapted a lot of really cool comic storylines. Like, you get to see the Black Spider-Man and Venom and all types of Spider-Man villains are in this series as well. This guy, John Semper Jr., he first kind of took a little shot at Marvel and Sony.
I saw that.
And I guess there was some awards. What was it? Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse won a Producers Guild Award, and his dude goes on X or Twitter, and he goes, "Hey," and he names everyone: Avi, Amy, Phil. Basically says, even though you've never seen fit to thank me in your credits for creating the Spider-Verse concept, you're welcome anyway.
Boy seemed a little butthurt.
He did, dude.
I'm not in that space.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but that just seemed like a dick move to me.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. And I think what he's getting at, and if I remember correctly, I think there was some Spider-Verse elements in this show.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he's saying that, he did that back in the day on this show, possibly. But yeah, it does seem a little butthurt. And yeah, actually, I'm reading on season 5 of this show, the Spider Wars. That's what he's referring to. It adapts the second Clone Saga, and he claims that that's the arc that inspired the Spider-Verse storyline.
Well,
that's a reach.
As I'm sitting here thinking about it, writers, directors, I mean, that's their entire world.
Yeah.
And the ultimate stamp is to get credit for their creativity, which they should.
Right.
It's kind of like the black woman that wrote the original script, not the original scripts but she wrote movies or storylines from which the Matrix and the Terminator was adopted.
Really?
And she finally won in court, I think, some settlement, some obscene settlement, because they took all of her shit and adopted these movies and gave her no credit for it. So I can kind of see where he would be, hey, I wrote this. Give me, toss me a bone or something.
Right.
Put my name somewhere, next to the janitor or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't think he ain't trying to get paid. He's just like, dude, give me a thanks. Like,
right.
Because I guess you would assume that the individuals that created the Spider-Verse probably saw Spider-Man, the animated series, right? So it had to have inspired a little bit, maybe.
Yeah. But also, speaking of inspiration, man, it's like, I don't know if you noticed, dude, but a lot of these movies that are coming out, these animated movies now that are coming out, is a lot of Spider-Verse-esque drawing. It's like, dude, this is like an avalanche of stuff now.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. And we predicted and recommended it, by the way, right here.
Okay.
You heard it here first on Only Comics. Now, what there's another part of this was a fan asked John Semper basically if he would consider doing a reboot of Spider-Man the Animated Series, and he responded to the fan and said, all they have to do is call me, I'm here, and I'd certainly consider doing it, which I think they should do.
But are they going to do it after that comment that he made?
No.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You're saying my man John may have shot himself in the foot, as they say.
I believe so.
Yep. Damn. Well, now let's pretend John didn't get all stupid on X. And I think it'd be a great idea to reboot the Spider-Man animated series and have them tie together with the X, because there was crossover. And I don't know if you remember, but there was times where the X-Men showed up in Spider-Man and vice versa, and create maybe a little, Marvel animated universe. Yeah, we got the MCU, Adrian. We could have the MAU.
Right.
There you go.
He should maybe do Spawn too while he's.
No, dude, Todd McFarlane, he's got faith that Blumhouse is going to get this thing done.
Hey, we're in March, baby. You got 9 more months.
Yeah, exactly.
You better get hot.
What you want? I'll make. We make predictions here a lot, right? I'm going to predict that we're going to get through the end of the year on this podcast, and we ain't going to see no damn Spawn movie from Blumhouse. It ain't going to start production, and next year Todd's going to have to fund this shit himself.
You know what, Todd? Just do it anyway. Yeah. Nobody's picking up your shit. I mean, after 15 years of begging, I mean, just do it yourself, dude.
Exactly.
You got enough connections.
Exactly. But I mean, what's your thoughts on if Marvel should Marvel create a Marvel animated universe?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the talent pool is separate. Everything is separate, and with a concentrated effort, I think it'll be spectacular.
Yeah.
I mean, so I know it looks like we shit on DC a lot, but their animated universe is awesome.
Yep, it's amazing.
It is awesome. Flashpoint, stuff like that, Batman Ninja, all of that stuff.
Yep.
The only thing close that I've even seen Marvel come close to is like I don't know, Iron Man, the Iron Man, the ninja style.
Yeah, the one you like, the anime one.
The Japanese animation style. Yep. I mean, to me, there's the Spider-Man stuff, the X-Men stuff.
Right.
But to me, the artwork.
Yeah.
So I think they can do some amazing stuff if they had a Marvel animated universe.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it'd be a great idea. And to your point, like we kind of preface everything here, as long as it's done right.
Right.
But I mean, the X-Men animated series, it had some great stories in there, great character portrayals. So did Spider-Man. And so, I mean, to reboot that one and tie those together, I mean, that's a no-brainer. It's right there.
I was just thinking, right? So the Super Bowl has nothing to do with what we just talked
Right.
about. It had like a lot of old like Usher,
Yep.
you know, references to like older things.
Yep.
Right. Now
Like in a lot of the commercials and stuff.
right, all the commercials
Yeah.
and stuff, right? So and now we're doing all these reboots.
Mhm.
Superman, Fantastic Four, going back in time. You know, older Spider-Man,
Yep.
X-Men '97. I think the Matrix that we're living in, they found an error in future code, so they're
Oh.
just trying to get us to relate back to the old stuff,
Got
so
it.
that we don't realize that we cannot move forward in the future,
Man.
or some other stupid stuff like that.
Right. Hey, we'll go with it, dude. We'll go
That was
with
like
it.
literally a waste of 45
Yeah, what's
seconds.
that to do with comics? Nothing. That's the thing. We're going to only comics. This is where we discuss comics and only comics, but sometimes some other stuff.
But sometimes some other stuff.
Sometimes. All right. So moving on. Josh Brolin, he confirms and denies that he'll be in Deadpool and Wolverine.
That's that tactic, man. It's like they can't say much,
Right.
but they don't want to exclude themselves either, because then they become nothing.
Exactly.
You know?
Yep. But you know what? I like his response. They asked him on, I think it was Good Morning America, right? And he goes, sure. I don't know. No, I'll check with my bookkeeper. Then he goes, don't know if that's, I can't say anything. Yes, no, maybe. Which is like the perfect response.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, what is he going to say? Yeah, oh, yeah, I'm in it, you know?
Right. And then he's not.
Right.
I don't know. They should limit how many characters an actor can play. Because right now, what is he supposed to be coming out as or in? So he's like, what, Cable?
Yeah, well, he's Cable from Deadpool.
Right. And then he was Thanos.
Yep.
Was he something else somewhere else?
Not in comics, I don't think. No.
Okay.
But
Well, I guess I can keep track of two.
yeah, there you go. You're good. So any more, you're gonna screw Adrian up, right?
Exactly.
We don't. No more. Are you a fan of Josh Brolin's portrayal as Cable?
It was because there has not, that I can remember or I have seen. There has not been anyone before him.
No.
So I think he did a decent job of pulling it off. So I'm cool with it. You know, he definitely looks the part.
He does. Yeah.
And I mean, the acting was pretty cool.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I liked it, dude. I really did. To your point, he looked the part, and and that is a big piece. We talked about that a few weeks ago. With the whole Fantastic Four casting, right? But I think Josh Brolin, he looked it and he nailed the part.
Sure.
So with his response, two questions for you. One, do you want him to show up in this movie? And two, do you think he'll show up?
I'm cool with him showing up.
Yep.
Do I think he'll show up? Probably, because Deadpool is using his tech.
Right.
So,
True. Yeah, that's what kind of screwed everything up, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree, dude. I definitely want him to show up because I thought he was a great character, like we just talked about in Deadpool 2. And I think he'll show up based off of, I didn't think about that till you just said it, but I agree, because Deadpool used his damn time travel thing the whole time. And based off of how he answered this, because I feel like if he wasn't, he would straight up say, no, they didn't contact me at all.
I mean, even if he has like a Nicolas Cage Superman cameo,
right
quick, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be a big role,
yeah.
But I'd love to see it. Like, it'd be cool to see Josh Brolin with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine.
Yeah.
Cable, because Cable and Wolverine have had some battles in the comics, and so that'd be cool to see.
Man, who hasn't Wolverine had a battle with?
Exactly, yeah, that's true.
Jean, Charles, Cyclops.
Well, I mean, he did kill Jean in one of the movies, So.
Yeah, that was that.
Yep. Yeah, the less we talk about that one, the better. All right, DC, bro, here you go. So you asked for it, Adrian. And
I didn't ask
delivered.
for it, but
James Gunn changes the name of Superman Legacy to Superman. What a surprise. I actually like this name better, to be honest.
Sure.
I've never read the story, the comic Superman Legacy. I guess that's what the name was based on before. Mm-hmm. But when I hear Legacy, to me that sounds like that should be like the third or fourth movie in your series. Like that means like we've built up this legacy. This is the first movie. So that part was weird to me that they were calling the first movie Legacy.
Okay. No comment.
Which name do you like better?
I definitely like the Superman.
Yeah.
Because it leaves it open to the storyline, what he can do in the movie, things like that.
Yeah.
And it's also a reference back to, the Christopher Reeve Superman, which is, one of the most iconic. And even to today, people are comparing any Superman after Christopher Reeve to Christopher Reeve.
Right. Yeah, no, I like the Superman name. And I did get that thought as soon as I read this. It brought me back to that Christopher Reeves Superman movie, which I've not watched that movie in years. As a kid, I loved it, though.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see the little screenshot James Gunn posted on Instagram of the Superman logo, the suit?
Yep.
It looks pretty cool.
It is for like a retro legacy type movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't necessarily like it, but it's a throwback in time piece, so it works.
Yeah, it kind of looks like the Kingdom Come logo. I don't know if you ever read that storyline with the older Superman, but it looks like that. I think that's what they based it off of.
Cool.
Next up, Miles Morales rumored to make his MCU debut in Spider-Man 4, so the next Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. Something else that we said here on Only Comics, Adrian, we did say that it's time for Miles Morales to show up in live action.
Right.
And then we get this rumor. So I'd say they're listening.
Oh, absolutely.
How do you feel about this?
I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
It's just that when I look at a pic of Glover, who plays Miles Morales' uncle, the actor Glover.
Yep.
He actually looks like a Miles Morales.
Yeah, he does.
So
I
don't know how they're going to do that, but whoever they bring in, they got a lot to live up to next to Tom Holland.
Yeah.
As a Spider-Man character. So, but I'm cool with it.
Yeah, dude, I really like this. I mean, when I first read it, part of me thought, well, shit, we haven't really seen Tom Holland's Spider-Man, kind of grounded Spider-Man yet. So I'm like, damn, the first movie we're going to see that, they're going to introduce another Spider-Man. But they just said Miles Morales, so he may not even be Spider-Man yet.
That's true.
Because there's, in the Spider-Man games, the PlayStation games, the storyline there, you start off as Peter Parker, you meet Miles before he's Spider-Man, and Peter ends up becoming somewhat of a mentor to Miles, and he gets bit by a spider at the end of the first game and then becomes Spider-Man. So if they were to follow something similar to that game, I think they could really pull this off.
I was just thinking, so how Gwen Stacy got the dreadlock dude's timepiece, right? She's popping around.
Yep.
It'd be cool if Gwen Stacy from across the Spider-Verse pops into Tom Holland's Peter Parker's universe, pulls him into the Miles Morales Spider-Man universe, and then that's how they get introduced. But then they actually come back into the time. It's complicated, but I think it'll be cool.
There you go. Dude, you should apply for a job at Marvel.
They can just pay me. I don't need to do anything.
You don't want to do it. You'll just give the suggestions here.
Exactly.
Yeah, screw it. I mean, we're waiting on them and those coffee folks too. So yeah, we're not. They shall be. They shall remain nameless.
There you go.
Yeah, dude, I'd be down with that. But you brought up Donald Glover playing Prowler. What's his name? Aaron Davis, right? We saw him in Spider-Man: Homecoming as just kind of like an arms dealer, and he mentions that, hey, I have a nephew, who lives in Harlem or whatever. Was so obviously direct reference to Miles. So technically, Miles does exist in the MCU already.
Right.
So it would just be this movie. Now, it would make sense with Spider-Man going back to being a more grounded Spider-Man, where he could meet or run into someone like Miles, who is pretty grounded character living in Harlem. So I would like for them to slow play it. I'd like for them to introduce him in this movie, but not have him become Spider-Man until, maybe a further event. Have him show up like Tom Holland Spider-Man did, like in an Avengers type movie, give him a little quick origin there to prepare him for his own solo.
So then what would be the purpose of him showing up in Spider-Man 4? Just kind of like
to meet Peter.
Okay. I can deal with that.
And then obviously they'd have to figure out another way for him to get bit, So maybe that happens in this movie. Maybe he meets Peter and somehow gets bit, but we don't see him get powers or anything till down the road.
All right. But I like that whole Spider-Man dimensional biting thing where, like the machine,
Oh,
it'll send you back to the world from where the spider was.
Mm-hmm.
They would have to take that dynamic out. I
Right,
think.
correct.
So,
Yeah. And who knows? And that's the thing. They can go either way. They can go simple or they could go complex because they have all the multiverse shit going on now. So it wouldn't be crazy to do something like you're saying because, building towards Secret Wars, there's going to be some – it's going to get crazier.
Yeah.
I like I said earlier, I read it for the first time. And somehow, if they're going Secret Wars, there's going to be Battle World somewhere.
Right.
So the Beyonder, I'm assuming, is going to show up or – he actually didn't really show up in that comic. He was just kind of mentioned. I don't think we ever really saw him. We just saw his energy. But yeah, I would say yes. I do think Miles should make his debut in Spider-Man 4.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool.
Cool. All right. Well, what we do at the end of every news and rumor segment is we do a little thumbs up, thumbs down, Adrian. So I think we're going to be split on some of these. So we'll see. Professor Xavier's evil twin sister, Cassandra Nova will be in Deadpool Wolverine. I give that a thumbs up.
Never heard of the chick. I'm gonna give it a thumbs up anyway, because I'm curious as to her storyline and how she's such an evil villain. I'm also interested to see how they're gonna pull this off in the movies.
Yeah. John Semper, a writer for Spider-Man the Animated Series, expressed interest in an X-Men 97-esque reboot for his show. And then he also took a shot at Marvel and Sony for not thanking him for inspiring the Spider-Verse idea. So I'm gonna give the first part of this a thumbs up, and then him kind of shooting himself in the foot a thumbs down.
Yep, thumbs up on the title of the news thing about the 97 thing. I'm also gonna do a thumbs up on go for your shit.
Okay.
A lot of people get buried. A lot of their creative work stolen.
Yep.
And, he's just saying, listen, I'm not even asking for a lot, just a shout out maybe.
Right.
And so, kudos to him for doing that.
Gotcha.
Now, whether or not they shoot him in the foot later, that remains to be seen. But, thanks, thumbs up for standing up for yourself.
Okay. All right. Josh Brolin confirms and denies that he'll be in Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm gonna give this a thumbs up. I like his response.
That's just politics. A thumbs down for me.
Okay. James Gunn changes the name of Superman Legacy to Superman. Thumbs up.
I give that a thumbs up too.
All right. Miles Morales rumored to make his MCU debut in Spider-Man 4. I'm giving this a huge thumbs up.
Absolutely, thumbs up.
There you have it. Well, that's thumbs up or down. You guys let us know if you agree with us or not. A lot of times they don't, Adrian. A lot of times they do.
Sure.
Someone said on TikTok the other day, "Oh, the unpopular opinion gang is back." I've been called worse. That's okay.
That's all righty.
But up next, we have your segment, Adrian. This is a fan favorite. This is where you break down a hidden gem in the comic book world. And a hidden gem is not necessarily a character that nobody knows. It's just someone that you feel has not been portrayed properly on screen, usually, or someone where, you did some research and you learned a lot of shit that nobody knew about an individual. Right. So we've had Dr. Doom on here. We've had Nova, not Cassandra Nova. We had Nova. We've had, who else? We've had The Guardian.
The Guardian.
Corsair.
Firestorm.
Bishop. Yep. We've had Flash.
Yep.
And we've had John Stewart's Green Lantern.
Yep.
So this week, Adrian, now that we have we're doing kind of an X-Men theme today, right? So who is your hidden gem?
All right. So this week, one of the problems that I have with the X-Men is that, pretty much everybody is so overpowered. If you look at the X-Men versus the Avengers, I mean, it's almost like Superman versus Daredevil, kind of not Superman versus Daredevil, but you have a Superman character, then you have a Daredevil character. The X-Men is so overpowered. I think that's why most of the X-Men movies are so shitty. It's because they cannot portray. They have this power level called Omega level, and most characters in the X-Men's universe or the mutants are so powerful. It's just incredibly hard, I believe, for them to portray. Not I believe. I've seen that they are unable to properly portray these characters in live action film, right? Which is why they need a MAU.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So because they can do all kind of crazy stuff with animation that they can't do in live action, right? So this character is one of those people that even I thought was like a Johnny Storm sidekick, pain in the ass teenager kind of a character, right? But
you're not a big Johnny Storm guy.
It's not that I'm not a Johnny Storm guy, but because his power is pretty awesome. You know, I mean, you light up like a match and you fly around. You could burn stuff up. I mean, that's pretty cool, right? But it's just that I think they just haven't bubbled him up to prominence.
Wait, would he beat what's his name? Martian the Manhunter? I mean, he's technically a big match, right? Wouldn't it fucking drive him crazy?
Oh, the only thing he had to do is like mention fire. And Manhunter like doing a catatonic shock or something.
Damn.
So anyway, this character, a mutant, but also an Omega level mutant, which I didn't realize until now. So this week's hidden gem is Iceman.
Nice.
Bobby Drake. So this character, he's actually one of the original members. I think he was like, depending on how you read it, he was like number 2.
Yeah.
Because Xavier sent Cyclops out to get him, and when he joined, he was announced as the second X-Men under Charles Xavier. So he's an old-time favorite. But if you look at the movies, I mean, you'd see Jean Grey in there first and all this other kind of stuff. But so he's been around for a long time. He was first introduced 63 in the X-Men.
Damn.
A New Yorker. Powers first manifested itself out of an unusual situation. Not unusual, but, you know, something always sparked it. You know, these things typically just don't come out on their own. But anyway, speaking of coming out, he's also portrayed as one of the most powerful gay mutants in the Marvel Universe.
Really?
Yeah. Which I also didn't know.
I didn't know he was gay either.
Yeah.
No shit.
So, but his powers were manifested because he was out on a date with a girl.
Yeah.
And some bully attacked him. And Bobby froze him, essentially, encased him in a block of ice.
Damn.
Now, of course, when you do that in public, what happens? Everybody gets afraid.
Right.
You know, this mob ensues. They actually, try to start hanging him. They attempt to hang him and Cyclops because at this point, because when he did that, of course, Xavier, oh my God, there's a new mutant, right? So he sends Cyclops to go recruit him. By the time, Cyclops get there, Bobby's all, actually confronted Scott.
Yeah.
But then this mob attacks both of them, and in the process of almost hanging them, right? So the cop comes in and they kind of like, arrest him.
Damn.
Just to keep him away from the mob.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. So eventually he came into the X-Men, and so he was number 2. Now, he's part of all kinds of teams. The Defenders, X Factor, X-Men. He went solo for a while. So he was just kind of all over the place. But the reason he did a lot of this is because, his ego, different members come in he didn't like. He would date this girl, then he wouldn't. So there was just a lot of stuff going on. So he changed sides a lot, right? But, so I'm not going to focus on all of those histories, but I want to get into the powers, which is why this guy's a hidden gem, right? So, at some point, with the, X Factor, he gets caught by Loki, and Loki catches him or captures him to try to use his powers against the Storm Giants.
Okay.
So he actually enhances Bobby's power to the point where he's basically feels that it's uncontrollable. Yeah. And at some point he starts wearing this belt to control his powers, and that's also one of his weaknesses throughout his development. He was always afraid of letting go because he didn't know what his powers would do. At some point, Loki took that power back.
Yeah.
He was able to control it. Thor actually saved him from Loki, which is kind of weird. But anyway, at another time, so Emma Frost comes into the scene. She's in a coma.
Yeah.
Bobby comes in to visit her. She kind of wakes up, possesses him basically.
Shit.
And takes over his body.
Yeah.
Now, in his body, Emma Frost does things with his powers that even to today Bobby has never done.
Damn.
Right? And
she's psychic, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
He went to her to ask her to train him on what she did, and she refused.
Wow.
It was like you just like a little, I forget the words that she used, but basically you're not able to do this stuff on your own. I kind of like punked him.
Almost like you don't deserve to know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So she did some pretty awesome stuff, and I get into it in the powers.
Yeah.
Then there was this thing called like the second mutation. He was like stabbed in the chest by Black Tom Cassidy, and the chest wound didn't heal.
Yeah.
So his chest cavity, everything healed, but this one area, and people didn't realize that was like the second coming of his powers.
Oh shit.
So I mean, a lot of stuff happened to this kid, but he went into the future, saw his future self at one point, and his future self told him, because he didn't see his future self as being gay, but Jean Grey, of course, reading another mind, invading somebody else's privacy, figured out that he was gay, and his future adult self said, well, I didn't want to be both known as a mutant and a gay person, so I suppressed that part of me, which is why he got into the dating of men and women.
Got it. So
a lot of stuff you can imagine. A young adult going through all of this stuff, suppressing power, suppressing, his sexuality. So very complex character, to say the least, right? So powers. Again, an omega level mutant. Basically, an omega level mutant in the comic book world means that he has no upper limit. And that's why it's so hard to portray these characters.
Right.
So one of his things, obviously, thermokinesis, he's immune with the ability to lower both his internal and external body temperature. So initially when he came out, he had this whole snowman persona, the snow on his skin, but then he perfected it to the point where, it was like translucent ice crystals.
Yeah.
And every time he moves, like Wolverine, when his claws pop out, a lot of people think that Wolverine has like holes in his fist.
He actually his skin every single time.
He actually breaks his skin.
Yeah.
And in muscle every time he retracts. He extends his claws, right. And then when he retracts them, the skin and muscle heals.
Yeah.
Well, every time Bobby moves, the ice breaks and reforms itself. So it's like this crackling sound. Every time he moves, right? So he can lower his body temperature from the normal 98 degrees Fahrenheit to sub-zero, absolute zero, negative 150 within a matter of a fraction of a second.
Damn.
So pretty cool. He has thermal vision because he is so cold. Everything else to him that it generates heat is like thermal vision to him. As a matter of fact, the X-Men were attacked once, and this guy was a psychic. He made all the other X-Men see him as invisible, but because Bobby could see into the spectrum, he immediately picked him up as soon as he walked into the room and attacked him, which broke the Psylocke on the rest of the team so that they can also see him.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. Cryokinesis, and this is what we know him for. He can generate, manipulate, and fully control snow and cold and all this other kind of stuff. But he can control it to the point where he's like the Green Lantern, the Black Green Lantern, where he's like John Stewart. So his constructs, the things that he can create is only limited by his, what he can think of. He's created entire ice cities out of his, out of these powers, which is pretty cool.
So I never knew Iceman was Omega level, because when you hear Omega level, I think of like, Phoenix,
Dark Phoenix,
Xavier, Magneto, right? But Iceman is Omega level.
Excuse me. Yeah. And I mean, some of these other things I'll explain to you why he's actually compared to like Dark Phoenix.
Wow.
As far as his powers are concerned.
Yeah, right? He would defeat the Justice League then. Sorry, continue.
Possibly.
Sidebar.
His organic ice form. So he had the snowman look.
Yeah.
Then he refined it to an ice crystal look. Then it got even more refined to like a translucent ice look. And now he can do this organic ice form. And his organic ice form, he's basically indestructible. Not indestructible. He's able to, if anything happens to him, he's able to, as long as there's any moisture around him, he can reconstitute himself. He's actually been incinerated in his human form and then remade his body in the ice form afterwards.
Oh, shit.
He's gotten to the point where, like, he was injected with, I think it was an anti-mutant serum or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
He was able to separate those cells because he can control his body or anything down to the molecular level when it comes to ice, water, vapor, things like that.
Yeah.
He was able to isolate those molecules that this poison was in, allow the poison to evaporate, and then replace his body cells with clean water, basically, to regenerate his body.
Yeah.
So he can literally regenerate his body at a molecular level, one cell at a time. So that's pretty awesome.
So would you say he has a healing ability?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is like every time he moves, he's healing, right?
Right.
Because that cracking actually breaks. Imagine every time you move, your skin breaks, and then it heals itself.
Yeah.
So that's essentially what he's doing.
Okay.
So he's had arms blown off. He's regenerated that.
Yeah.
Like I said, he's been his human form has been completely incinerated, and he was able to regenerate himself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I call that a healing factor.
That's another thing that's crazy is or you don't realize when you hear healing factor, healing ability, your mind usually goes to Wolverine. Right. And now Deadpool, because he's, with the movies or whatnot. But there are a lot of other characters in comics, a lot of Marvel characters that have like Spider-Man has a healing ability.
Yep.
You just mentioned Iceman, but I bet if we were to kind of do I bet there's a lot more than you would think, because your mind normally goes right to Wolverine.
Right. Well, I mean, Superman has a healing factor.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman has. I mean, most of these people, if you look at them, if they're fighting, except for like Bruce Wayne and Daredevil, right?
Yeah.
They don't have healing factors.
No, they got left out.
They got Motrin and all this other stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, we think about certain superheroes as having the main power. Like Superman is his strength.
Right.
Right. And then like everything else is kind of secondary. But yeah, definitely a healing power. Hydrokinesis. I thought this was interesting. So he has the ability to become water, vapor, any component of water, right? So water, vapor, air, things like that. Now, this is the cool part. He can become part of any body of water so that he is in multiple places simultaneously.
Okay. Right.
So he could be in Hawaii in the ocean and be your P here in Connecticut, right? So any part, he can split his consciousness across any distance as long as the water is connected, the way I understand it.
Wow.
Right? So not only that, he can create what is it? Like golems. You know how Flash can create like images of himself and he can send them out as scouts?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he can do this with like ice and water vapors. He can create, like little monsters or other living, moving things that he can then send out and do stuff with. So, which is pretty cool, right? What else? Oh, he can obviously turn anything into ice. So he's like Sue Richards, who can manipulate things or create bubbles inside of other things.
Yeah.
So in other words, Bobby Drake's power isn't just around him. He can actually form ice crystals like in your blood.
Damn.
Right? So he can also manage stuff at a distance, apparently. So if he did it one time, he froze like every cell in a person's body to kill him.
Shit.
So that's pretty awesome.
So he would do that to Batman like this. And
absolutely.
Then, I mean, I think he'd solo the Justice League.
Molecular moisture conversion, the ability to transform organic matter. So I said he can become part of any body of water, right?
Mm.
So even though he hasn't done it himself, so basically he can become a body of water, move at tremendous speed through that body of water, right? And then rematerialize himself at another point.
Yeah.
But he can also do that with other people.
Mm.
You know, kind of like when the Flash moves, you always think like, you know, how can Flash get somebody and move them so quickly without snapping their necks or
Right.
what, you know, whatever. So he's able to project that speed force around a person. So Bobby can also do that with not project a speed force, but he can convert a person, an organic thing, into the same thing that he is, so that he can then move them through a medium, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Right? The ice clone generation. He can, you know, generate an ice clone of himself. And it's unknown how many he can do, but he can do it. He can also, like Ant-Man, get bigger. He can bring in more molecules of water to himself to make himself bigger.
Oh shit.
Strong, and of course, when he gets bigger, he can become stronger.
Yeah.
Things like that. He's created constructs like, you know, giant like robot-like structures in which he's like in a virtual room inside the robot controlling him.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's done stuff like that. He's actually was able to freeze the entire Earth. He threw the entire Earth into like an ice age kind of a deal. So his powers extend to that point. When he does that, because he is part of all of that ice, he can literally know everything about what's going on anywhere on the planet because he's connected to that ice.
Damn.
So that's
a beast,
that's
dude.
that's a beast, man. That's a beast.
So yes, I would say he has not been portrayed properly on screen.
Absolutely not.
And now he was in a handful of the X-Men movies. I forget the kid's name who played him. I don't think it was a bad job, but it's not to this level. Like, he was treated as a sideline character.
Right.
You know?
I think that kid who played him, I don't think he's found his character in a movie.
Yeah.
Because Iceman was not it.
No.
And so, and it's unfortunate, but they get these guys in because they're whatever, and they just don't do the person justice. And based off of these powers, they haven't done Iceman justice at any level on any medium.
Right.
So, I mean, these things, imagine being able to, I mean, that kind of makes him like a god, right?
Yeah.
If you can freeze the entire planet, number one, and then anything that's touching that ice, you know about what's going on with that. That, I mean, you're literally everywhere at all times, knowing everything about about everything. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that's why he's a hidden gem this week, dude. I mean, it's so much to this guy. There's so much depth to him, even at a personal level. You know, with his own personal stuff. You know, that makes him more complex than most people. Yeah. Right. But then he's got all these other cool powers. I would love to see them even try to portray this in some kind of, you know, reasonable way on, you know, live action.
Right. Well, I also think at the time, not to make excuses for Fox, but when they had Bobby Drake as an X-Men character in the main shows, I don't think they had the technology to create. They couldn't do him justice from a CGI standpoint, so he was in his human form so much.
Right.
And we just saw little bits and pieces of the powers. And I think because he was a sideline character, they weren't going to spend the millions of dollars it takes to create. So I think that's part of it. Now, with the technology they have, I think they could do him justice on screen. I mean, it's kind of like the difference between what Fox did with Apocalypse versus Marvel and Thanos.
Right.
You know, a lot. I'm sure it costs way more money to create that Thanos character than that Apocalypse shitty suit that they found at a fucking yard sale. But anyway,
with the rubber face.
Yeah, with the rubber face and all that bullshit. But Iceman, I think they could do it a really good job now, like in, you know, CGI or whatnot with that character.
Absolutely. Sean Ashmore. The kid that played Iceman.
Iceman, okay.
Yeah, in the X-Men movies and stuff. I just don't think he's found his vibe as an actor.
Right.
That character is not it.
No, and I don't think the writing helped at all. Like, he was treated as a very sideline. Like, I mean, he had a little romance with Rogue and stuff like that, and then this little rivalry with Pyro. But they also were very young versions of those characters too. So it's kind of like, which is why he's a hidden gem. We didn't get to see the real Iceman.
I mean, they kind of portrayed him like they did Havoc, in the X-Men
Yes.
too,
Yep.
with the hula hoop thing.
Yep.
I mean, I'm like, come on.
You don't think Havoc does that when he conjures up his power?
No.
All right. I hear Iceman, and I think of Aquaman, right? Similar, not similar, but water, ice. So we'll do a little comparison between these two, Adrian. All right. And not that we want to make everything DC versus Marvel, but Iceman
You
versus
do
Aquaman.
understand that there's like zero comparison between the two, right?
I mean, is ice not water?
But Aquaman doesn't even control water. He can go through it
Yep.
like Superman goes through the air.
Okay.
But that's about it. I mean, he
Right.
can breathe the stuff,
Yep.
but he can't transform it. So imagine. Oh, anyway, go ahead with your
Let's just
question.
go. Let's just
and
go.
we'll
Let's
see what
just-
happens.
All right. So, Iceman versus Aquaman.
Yep.
Cooler powers. Who's got cooler powers?
Come on,
Aquaman or Iceman?
Iceman.
Okay. Who's a cooler looking character?
That depends. Off the top, I mean, because you got like the old school Aquaman in the
Yeah,
the
yeah,
white dude
looks like
Aquaman
Thor
with
underwater.
with his feet moving real fast in the water versus the one that we have now, Jason Momoa.
Okay.
Or then you have the older Bobby Drake with the snowman suit on versus what he can do now.
Yep.
So I would say depending, but overall, I would go with Aquaman.
Aquaman overall.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'd say so I agree with you on the first one that Iceman has cooler powers. Second one, I'd say Iceman's cooler looking. Who would win in a fight?
Oh, Iceman.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
just freeze the ocean.
Just freeze the ocean. The entire ocean.
Damn. So he's already.
Atlantis, everybody, the fish,
Shit.
everything.
And then best on-screen portrayal so far.
Oh, my God. Of course, Aquaman.
Aquaman. There you go. I agree. So there you have it. Iceman versus Aquaman. But we know that Iceman will win the fight. Dude, I'm really starting to think about this. Iceman would solo the Justice League.
Yeah, he would.
All
I
right.
mean, you don't even need, at this point, you don't even need two characters from the X-Men, just
Damn.
one. I mean,
All right.
pretty much any one character would probably solo the Justice League, dude.
All right. So, well, hey, another great hidden gem. And you surprised me with Iceman. It was a great choice. I was a big fan of him as a kid, too.
Oh, really?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
One other thing that one of his powers, the Juggernaut, right?
Yep.
You know what his power set is? Basically, he's unstoppable once he starts moving.
Right.
Kind of a deal. Iceman was able to stop him.
Really?
On multiple, yeah. So that kind of gives you an idea of how powerful like his constructs are.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another kind of a thing. It's like the Juggernaut is like awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Not
yeah,
the Deadpool version
Right.
of Juggernaut, but just in
See,
the
I like
comics.
that one, dude.
No.
Man, so wait, could the Juggernaut be a future hidden gem? Because he's not, in your opinion, he's not been portrayed properly on screen, right?
I don't think most of them have been portrayed properly, but it's possible. It's
Okay.
possible.
I will tell you, in X-Men the Animated Series, I've been trying to sell you on watching some of these episodes. I'm going to get you to watch one or two. Well, I mean, the new show's coming out, but
Sure.
Juggernaut's in a couple episodes, and these are really cool episodes, and it's a good portrayal of him.
Okay.
And he's also, I'm sure you know this, he's Xavier's, is it his stepbrother?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marco Kane?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, they're not half-brothers, they're stepbrothers.
Something like that.
Something like that. But
Not real brothers, however it's split up.
exactly, yeah. So anyway, well, great hidden gem as always, Adrian.
Cool.
But yeah, I was an Iron Man fan. I used to have, there was some X-Men action figures I had in the 90s, and one of them had like the snowman look, but he was translucent, which was cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was another version where Iceman's a little more rugged, and he's got like chunks of ice. Like, I like that version, I think, more.
Yeah. He had he as he refined his powers, and by the way, you said Iron Man.
Oh, shit,
initially,
Iceman.
but we understand what you
Yeah,
said.
we know. You know what I mean.
As he refined his powers, he came out with like the spikes out of his shoulder
Yeah.
and all this other kind of
That
stuff.
was
So
cool.
yeah, it was a lot cooler than the snowman.
Right.
Because even like one of the comics, he was so snowy. They showed him like putting on like the carrot nose.
Oh
and
my
the
God!
eyes.
Of course
I mean,
they did.
Ridiculous stuff.
Yeah, that's the shit they used to do in the '60s, right?
Whatever.
And I always liked that he had like a sled almost that he made out of ice. Like that was pretty cool. Like he would kind of throw the ice underneath him. At least
Right.
the action figures came with a sled, but that's kind of what it looked like.
Well, it wasn't a sled because a sled is like an individual thing. He made ramps.
Okay.
That he kind of slid around on.
Yeah.
I mean, he obviously had to secure them every
Right.
number of feet, but I think at one point I was reading that he also can just fly without making those
Oh, really?
constructs. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd have to do a little bit more research on that because it was like a blurb. But he actually developed his powers to where he didn't actually need to create these ramps to kind of slide around on, which is what you typically see him being portrayed as.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. Well, we did a little kind of agree to disagree teaser there, Adrian, but that's our next segment, okay?
Let's do it.
And if you've not done this already, please hit the subscribe button, like this video, share it with somebody who also would like it. You know, our last episode was our most watched episode. It's
Really?
like a trend week after week, dude.
Nice.
And I think it's because of segments like this, agree to disagree, okay? So this is, I think it's a fan favorite. I mean, one of our biggest videos on TikTok came from this segment, so.
Well, what it is that, you know, James Gunn is watching us and, you know, he's like, you know, texting everybody. He's like, dude, these guys are like, you know, they're incredible. You know, let's steal some ideas from them. So all that stuff is just getting out and we're just, you know, on the roll now.
Right? Absolutely. So here we go. I'm going to rapid fire 10 of my opinions at you, Adrian, and you're going to let me and the rest of the universe know if you simply agree or disagree.
Okay.
Okay. And these are things that a lot of them just hit me this morning. So, you know, if they're not, a lot of times sometimes we may change our stance on some things, right? Believe it or not. We're also not experts. We told you that several times, even though we've been accused of being experts. So anyways.
Well, before you get started, you know,
Yes.
I just, on some of these agree to disagrees, I can't simply agree or disagree. So it might have to be a little discussion. So it might not be as rapid fire as you might think.
Yeah, are you saying that my statements are a little complex sometimes?
Sometimes, yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right. Well, here we go. Number one, the Spider-Man animated series should get an X-Men 97-esque reboot.
Okay, I agree.
Okay. Starting off great. Number two, Cable should show up in Deadpool and Wolverine.
Sure, I agree.
The Deadpool movies feel more X-Men than most X-Men movies.
Agree.
Iceman would beat the devil out of the Human Torch.
Agree.
I did that for you because I know you're not a big Johnny Storm guy.
No, it's not that. It's just that I think Iceman's powers have evolved. I mean, Johnny Storm's not going to set the entire planet on fire like the Iceman can freeze the entire planet. You know, those kind of things. And Johnny Storm can't, you know, move his consciousness through a brush fire. You know, like Iceman can move his consciousness through any kind of water medium.
Right. Now, this one I just kind of added after our last discussion, Adrian. Iceman would solo the Justice League.
I agree.
Let that sink in. Speaking of the Justice League, the Flash is faster than Quicksilver.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Ezra Miller was the worst live-action Flash.
You could have stopped at Ezra Miller was the worst, and I would have said agree. So, agree.
Batman is DC's coolest character.
Agree.
Logan is the best X-Men movie to date.
Agree.
There you go. And then I got one more here for you. Everybody watching should go to onlycomicsmerch.com right now and support the show.
Agree, including Duncan.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Have that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
The vendor, what did you call it?
The vendor that I'm sure are nameless.
Yeah, there you go.
I didn't see a box of Joe here this morning. Did you?
I haven't seen a box of Joe here ever.
Any mornings? No?
I think, you know, hey, if you have some connection with Duncan, you want to, you know, you're a fan of the show, reach out, you know, have your people. You don't even have your people call our people.
Yeah.
Just have the Joe show up.
Exactly.
Be much appreciated.
It's not that hard. I mean, there's enough there's probably 37 locations like in an 8-mile radius from here. I mean, they're all over. That's one thing about New England, dude. Like, there's Duncans across the street from other Duncans, and that's not an exaggeration.
Yeah, but they make it so painful once you go out west, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in California, and you got to jump 3 interstates. It's like 45 minutes away to get to the nearest Dunkin' Donuts. It is painful.
You got to be stuck with, like, some, you know, low-level Starbucks coffee or something. God. I can't do Starbucks, though. It's not.
Oh, man.
No. So Starbucks, don't send a box of Joe or whatever y'all call it over there. Just don't. All right. So last week, Adrian, I suggested some animated series episodes to our viewers. Okay, I'm a X-Men animated series guy. March 20th, the X-Men 97 will debut. So I also heard that they're debuting 2 episodes. It's going to be a 10-episode series or season. 2 episodes on March 20th, and then 1 episode a week for the next 8 weeks.
Okay.
I know what I've heard so far about this show is Magneto's going to be leading the X-Men. Professor Xavier he's not dead, but he's off planet, and he's in a state where he can't survive on Earth. So he's away.
Okay.
Somewhere where he'll not have much contact with the X-Men.
Maybe in the Shi'ar Empire.
I think it's something to do with those. You know, we know how the Shi'ar are. You know,
whatever.
They always want Shi'ar. Yeah, that's a mouthful. We know how the Shi'ar are. But they're always messing with Xavier, dude.
Right.
You know, Lilandra and all those peeps.
Yep.
But anyway, so I know that Magneto is basically in charge of the X-Men, which I'm excited to see.
Sure.
And I did read that Mr. Sinister is rumored to be one of the main villains, at least in the first season. Okay. Which I'm a pretty big Sinister fan from the original animated series. What's your take on Mr. Sinister?
I think he's an awesome character.
Yeah.
Like, he's like evil incarnate.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes him pretty cool. Again, the writing, I mean, they just have to make it. I hope they don't try to make this like a kid-friendly animation. I think they need to realize that even today, kids are watching more extreme stuff.
Right.
And they need to make the characters the way they were supposed to be portrayed.
Yeah.
And not this, rated, G,
exactly.
Little Mermaid stuff they got going on.
I wonder who, like, if we could ask you all at Marvel, since y'all watch our show, maybe you can answer. You know how fans are like, hey, can you answer our questions? Maybe you guys can answer this question.
Right.
Who is the target audience for X-Men 97?
That's a good question.
Right? Because it shouldn't be children, in my opinion, because the fans of the original animated series from the 90s are minimally my age.
Right.
They're in their late 30s.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think my 12-year-old's going to watch X-Men 97.
Right.
I don't. I know I will. So I to your point, I hope it is geared more towards adults. And I think that is one of, like, I do really enjoy the X-Men animated series. It's not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the drawbacks is certain episodes at times you can feel that them kind of catering to the younger audience,
right.
Which, like, I think Batman the animated series did a good job of juggling that.
Mm.
They did cater to the younger audience, but the tones and the stories were very adult.
Wasn't Batman Beyond for like a younger generation?
Batman Beyond was, yes.
Yeah.
So I got to cut. Last week I suggested a few episodes, and I'm going to continue to do this until we get to, X-Men 97 debuting. And there's a method behind my madness, Adrian. Okay. So, because I'm not just, I have a few random. I have two this week that I'm going to recommend.
Okay.
So one of them is, it's actually the second to last episode of the show. The title of the episode is Descent. This is season 5. This is episode 9 of season 5. Okay. Right. And this story, there aren't many X-Men in this episode. The story is basically Mr. Sinister's origin. And it takes place in 1888 back in London. In the beginning of the episode, we see Jack the Ripper hunting down victims, and there's this character, James Xavier, who's kind of on his track, right? James believes that Nathaniel Essex is Jack the Ripper. Now, anyone who is familiar with Mr. Sinister, Nathaniel Essex is Mr. Sinister, right? Nathaniel, at the time, his wife is sick, and James Xavier is actually treating his wife. So I guess at the time, back in the 1800s, even though Nathaniel Essex was a scientist/doctor, it was frowned upon for you to care after your own loved ones. You would have to have them treated by another doctor. At least what they said in X-Men the animated series. So I'm going with it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, Marvel wouldn't lie, right? Charles Darwin is in this episode, and James and Essex kind of debate Darwin on his theories of evolution. And at this point, Nathaniel Essex has he's discovered mutants and mutations. And he has somewhat of a asylum or whatnot, and I'm kind of jumping around, so I'm not going to go through the whole episode, but he's got basically mutants in his basement locked up in cages, and he's experimenting on them. And after he realizes Xavier's treatments are not helping his wife, he starts using DNA from the mutants to try to cure his wife, and he also uses them. He basically turns himself into a mutant. So you know how the Mr. Sinister you're probably used to is with the white face, right? So Nathaniel Essex was just regular dude, wasn't a mutant, But through all these experiments and stuff on other mutants, he basically learned how to harness that power, turned himself into a mutant.
Okay.
And then he actually was treating his wife, curing his wife as well with these mutations. James Xavier found out, and this is kind of like, it's almost like you think about like Scarlet Witch and Agatha's origins, where like them having those witch powers were looked at as like you're evil.
Right.
And it was kind of what was going on here. And, fast forward, basically everyone finds out about this. James Essex is now white-faced, sinister. Mm-hmm. And, big riot begins. They attack him, and he kind of flees. And then it kind of moves forward to where we see Jack the Ripper returning to Mr. Sinister. So basically, in this origin, Mr. Sinister is he's basically having Jack the Ripper go and kill people. He was kind of Mr. Sinister's like his master, I guess, if you will. James and the police are chasing after Sinister, and he leaves a book behind. Sinister does, and then it fast forwards to present day, and Xavier has that book on his nightstand. Charles Xavier. So that's the kind of tie. But it's a whole origin of Sinister. It's really cool, and there's not much. Like I said, it kind of seems like an offshoot. Mm-hmm. So this is why I'm recommending this, because Sinister is rumored to be one of the main villains in X-Men 97. So this gives you a great little breakdown of that character. That's Descent, 9th episode of the 5th season. And the second one I'd recommend, we're both pretty big Wolverine fans here, right? You'd say so?
Yep.
I think we both agree that outside of Logan, the Wolverine movies were pretty mid or shitty, right? Like the first one, for example, had some good elements, but, they really screwed it up with the whole Deadpool mouth wired shut and all that bullshit, right? Mm-hmm. But do you remember Silver Fox from that movie? Silver Fox is a character that Wolverine's kind of had a relationship with back in the day. In the movie, she was not part of like the whole Weapon X team, but in the comics, I believe, and in the animated series, she was. Mm-hmm. Sabretooth was in that movie. So there's an episode that I recommend this week. It's called Weapon X, Lies, and Videotape, and it's the 8th episode of the 4th season. And this episode, dude, does what X-Men Origins could not do. It's because a lot of the story elements are the same. It starts off with a flashback. And you had mentioned this before, how, Sabretooth will show up on Wolverine's birthday every year, right, and kick his ass or whatever. Right. And we see that in this episode. We see him showing up to Wolverine and Silver Fox's cabin on his birthday to fuck with him, pretty much. So we see that. But basically, Wolverine gets a photo in the mail, postcard, and it's a picture of him and Silver Fox, and it triggers all these memories. And they basically, long story short, someone is bringing all of the former mutants that were part of this Weapon X team back to the facility where they got their powers and the adamantium and the whole deal. So we get to see Silver Fox. We get to see Sabretooth. Beast goes with Wolverine to try to calm him down. We see all kinds of flashbacks of Omega Red and Sabretooth fighting. Maverick is in this. Like I said, Silver Fox. They get to a facility where it can only be unlocked by all of their DNA. So it's like someone's pulling them back to this facility. It brings back a lot of flashbacks. But I recommend this because they do a great job of portraying a story that we've seen fucked up on screen in the past. Mm-hmm. And obviously Wolverine's going to be a big part of X-Men 97. So this gives you an idea of his background. So Weapon X, Lies, and Videotape, and then Descent are the 2 X-Men animated series episodes I recommend this week.
These are animated?
Yes.
Wow, that sounds so much more interesting than Superman.
Damn.
No, I got to go watch that now because, mean, that just the storyline, the way you explained it, it just sounds in-depth and well thought out.
Yeah.
To be an animated, cartoon,
Dude, that's one of my favorite things about this animated series. And you do have to get past the quality of the art. Like it's, it's shot in 93. I think a big issue with this, it hasn't been properly remastered yet either. Mm-hmm. So I think if they were to remaster this thing in 4K, it probably would be, easier to digest. But if you can get past the fact that it was, created 30 years ago, the storylines are great in a lot of the episodes. And that's also what my plan to do with this is there are some shitty episodes. There's some episodes that aren't even worth watching. They're just horrible. Right. Like, I'm not a big fan of the Savage Land episodes in this.
Right.
I don't know if you're a fan of Savage Land in the comics.
I wasn't, but I was actually looking at him as a hidden gem.
Okay.
Because it's just basically some guy fell into a hole, into a hole, and just rolled over into a prehistoric land. And became, I forget what his name was. Then of course I don't know how the girl got there. She fell with him, or she was already there, or something like that. It was just like a kind of. I think they were trying to compete with Conan, which back then they had. Conan was like the big graphic novels.
Yeah.
I mean the Conan. They were the books were probably twice the size of a regular comic book, and they were black and white. And dude, there was this guy at my high school. He used to collect them, and he would only bring me one at a time, all wrapped up. But at least he trusted me with it,
right?
And I just dug deep into those graphic novels. But I think this spin was like trying to compete with that. So I don't really. But to answer your question, no, I didn't get into it.
Yeah, well, guess what? The Savage Land episodes are even worse. So definitely, if you do watch the animated series, skip those ones. You know, but this episode, another part is they deal with a lot of Wolverine and the rest of the group's memory issues, right? Because that's something that we've seen a little bit in the Fox movies where he didn't really remember his background. But they kind of give you a better explanation as to why. A lot of their memories were implanted. This group that they were turning into, this Weapon X facility, like I said, Silver Fox, Maverick, Omega Red, Sabretooth, Wolverine, the way they kind of turned them into these killers where they had them hooked up to these machines and they were watching, like they were feeding them traumatic memories, pretty much. So over and over, feeding them traumatic memories to their brain to toughen them up, make them killers, the whole deal. And then in doing that, they implanted a lot of memories.
Right.
So like Sabretooth is wondering, like, did he actually have a father who beat him as a kid? He don't, but that was one of the memories he had, right? Even Silver Fox and Wolverine, they had a relationship, and Wolverine thinks it was real. She thinks it was bullshit. And we know Wolverine, he is a sucker for, he's a sucker for love,
Right.
So that's a big piece of this too, him wanting to reconnect with her and her kind of just like, dude, it kind of reminds me of in Guardians 3 where Gamora is like the other Gamora,
right.
And Peter's like, oh my God, my Gamora. And she's like, dude, get the fuck away from me. Like, it's kind of like that. Wolverine's not as much of a simp as Peter, but, he simps out a little bit in this.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, I agree. It is more interesting than Superman, but all jokes aside, it is better than the a lot of these storylines. The way they've been portrayed on screen, they've done a much better job in X-Men the animated series.
Cool.
So moving on, dude. Our X-Men. I guess we'll call this our X-Men open discussion.
Okay. We're
gonna take the next 10 minutes or so, and then we'll wrap with a little We Respond. A fan favorite segment. But we're talking a lot of X-Men today, dude. I've always been an X-Men fan, but my introduction, I believe it was because I was probably 8 years old when I was first introduced to the X-Men. I think the animated series is what introduced me to the X-Men, and then I got into the comics. But I think a lot of my favorite Marvel comics come from X-Men stories. Now you say you're kind of split between Avengers and X-Men, right? Do you have any favorite stories or individual comics or maybe a certain writer's run with X-Men that stands out to you? Or
I like the whole the X-Men, the Hellfire Club interaction. They had a Wraith, like Wraith. It was just like these aliens that could possess and make themselves look like other people, kind of a thing. So that was a whole thing. I like the Alpha Flight interaction. I like when Phoenix became Dark Phoenix.
Yes.
What else? I liked Wolverine mostly, like you like Batman.
Okay.
By himself.
Yes.
Not with the family, but just by himself. But they just introduced me to so many other types of characters.
Yeah.
But the Sentinels. That whole thing, Futures Past, when they went into the future.
Yep.
Wolverine with the gray stripes. Actually, another person I was looking at for Hidden Gem was Kitty Kitty Pryde.
Oh, Kitty Pryde, yeah.
Yeah, she could, walk through shit.
Because in the comics, she goes back in time, right? Because in the movie, they sent Wolverine back. But in the comics in Days of Future Past, doesn't Kitty Pryde go back in time?
I think she goes into the future.
Or in the future, yeah, in the future, yeah.
In the future, yep.
Yeah.
And they sent her into the future, and then that's when she meets up with the then Wolverine.
Yeah, yeah.
So that whole storyline. But, of course, most of all this stuff that I'm talking about, the artist was John Byrne.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I still compare everything really to John Byrne's and Stan Lee's, artwork, even to this day. So,
yeah.
Whether John Byrne did the X-Men or whether he did Superman. My favorite Superman was John Byrne.
Got it.
So, I really love that art style.
Yeah.
But so I don't have any specific episodes. I just have eras where I like the whole Shi'ar interaction.
Yeah.
So now nothing in particular, but just that whole storyline during that period of time when I was in like high school.
Yeah.
84, 5, 6, somewhere up in there.
And during that John Byrne era, wasn't Chris Claremont one of the main writers?
Yes.
I mean, he wrote for like 16 years, I think, on X-Men. And he had a hell of a run. Actually, 16 years, Uncanny X-Men from 75 to 91.
Yeah.
Longer than any other writer. Yep. Claremont was a beast, dude.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of those stories you're mentioning, like the Dark Phoenix and all, I'm pretty sure he wrote most of those. Yep. One of my favorite stories that I feel like doesn't get talked about enough is X-Men God Lives, Man Kills. Claremont wrote this. This was in 82, and this was I think it was a graphic novel. I don't think it was in the main continuity. But this is what they used to inspire the X-Men X2 movie with Stryker, where he kidnaps Professor Xavier and he gets him to try to kill the mutants. And it's kind of like that, but this one's a little more adult. Like the beginning of the comic, Magneto's investigating a murder of 2 mutant children killed by henchmen of William Stryker, who was a reverend in this. So it's darker than darker than what you see on screen, which we've talked about plenty of times. There's a lot of comics that are geared more towards adults, Shadowcat's in this, Nightcrawler. Shadowcat's Kitty Pryde, but how do you feel about Nightcrawler? I'm a big fan of Nightcrawler.
Another one that came across my desk, I was looking at him.
Yeah.
Kurt Wagner. I mean, he's a pretty awesome dude too.
Yeah.
He's another one where I think it was in X2 where he was like trying to kill the president.
Yes.
I mean that was a perfect. I won't say perfect. It was a very good portrayal.
It was a great portrayal
of his powers.
Yeah.
The way he could pop around and all this other kind of stuff. I mean, and the actor who embodied. He basically embodied.
Yes.
Kurt Wagner, the Nightcrawler character. So, I love that whole scene. It was a great opening scene, and that was something done very well. But I'm sure, just like most characters, they have or they will evolve his powers into something else. So maybe he will be a hidden gem later on.
Yeah, he'd be a great hidden gem, I think. Nightcrawler was on screen twice with 2 different portrayals. One was X2, and then the other was in the First Class series of movies, which I didn't really like that version. I know he's meant to be like a teenager, but he's a little dorky and kind of corny, in my opinion. But the guy who played him, Alan Cumming was his name, who played him in X2, I thought did a great job. Yeah. To your point, I mean, that portrayal, like that's one that has not been mentioned in any rumors, but I would love to see that character show up again.
Oh, absolutely.
Same actor. Matt, I'd like to see him show up. I wouldn't be mad if he was in Deadpool and Wolverine, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, they could pull it off.
Yep.
So,
some other X-Men. What about X-Men villains, dude? Who are some of your favorite? I'm a big Magneto guy, but it's kind of unfair to call him a villain because in the comics he's pretty much a hero. He kind of came along on the other side, but he was one of the big villains for a long time. Do you have a favorite?
I don't think I have a favorite, but along the lines of Magneto, you got Mystique.
Yep.
She's kind of in and out. She's like, you got some of these characters that are like, on the like Doom. He's in and out. Not Black Cat. What's her face? I mean, in DC.
Yeah.
Batman. Selena Kyle.
Yep,
she's in and out. So you have those so I don't really consider them villains.
Okay.
Villains to me are like the Sentinels, the Hellfire Club, the Wraith. Stuff like that. So those were the Brood.
Yep. Dude, I love the
villain.
Sentinels, like that storyline, and that's actually I'll give you a little a hint, or a teaser for next week. The animated series episodes I'm going to recommend next week are going to heavily feature the Sentinels,
Okay.
because that's another aspect of X-Men that has not been portrayed properly on screen. The closest they came was Days of Future Past.
Okay.
Remember when they went back in time and we saw the creation of the Sentinels? That was cool, but it was just a small piece of that movie. I would love to see kind of a Night the Sentinels recreated in live action, like when they're first introduced and they're this big, massive threat and they're targeting mutants and shit like that. Like that is a great storyline, you know. And that's why I love the X-Men. I like that idea that they're the outcast. They're looked at as, I mean, and again, it mimics a lot of the way certain minorities have been treated. I mean, from the Nazi deal, from, you know, our civil rights movement here in the U.S., like it literally tells a lot of those stories through the mutant versus human, and I think that's why I gravitated more towards X-Men than Avengers, because like it's one thing to be the Superman, the cool hero. The mutants were looked at as outcasts and treated like shit, and they were still protecting everyone, you know, the X-Men. So yeah, but X-Men villains, dude, there's so many. We mean Sinister, Apocalypse is one that could be, I mean, that could be a Thanos level threat to, you know, a whole universe of characters.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah, but then you also got like the internal people that turn. You know, like Warren Worthington the third, the Angel, you know, who was also, I was looking at as a hidden gem.
Yeah, he became
cool Archangel. Jean Grey became the Dark Phoenix.
Yep.
So you also have those kind of crossovers, which made them complex but relatable.
Right.
The reason I like the Avengers so much was I was huge into into tech. So the Avengers, Fantastic Four, the Fantastic Car, all the stuff that Reed did, Iron Man, all the stuff that Tony Stark did. You know, so all that tech stuff was what actually attracted me. The Sentinels, the reason that's what really turned me on to the X-Men, because even in, I don't know if they had like a encyclopedia, the Marvel Universe, they actually broke down every character, including the Sentinels, and they gave like diagrams. Dude, I devoured those things. So the Sentinels actually got me more into the X-Men because of the technology part. But then you get into all the other, you know, cool aspects of it, you know, like the villains and things like that. So yeah.
So do you prefer X-Men with Wolverine or without?
Wolverine is a free floater. Wolverine is unlike Batman. Batman's ego, I think, makes him such a loner that everybody else around him is an extra. Wolverine doesn't give a shit.
Right.
So he could be with or without people. So which makes him fit more into a family or outside of it.
Yeah.
I think the adventures with Wolverine are more intense.
Yeah.
Are more likable. I think a better question would have been, do you like the X-Men with or without Scott?
Oh, okay.
And the answer would be, I like him better without Scott.
Really?
Because he's a dick.
He is, but I feel like he adds a level of entertainment to the X-Men because of that.
Sure.
Like, you know, he pisses you off.
Exactly.
But he's a hell of a leader, you know, but he pisses you off.
Yeah. I mean, so is Storm.
True.
You know, so is Wolverine. So is all the other leaders that's been in there. That's why they actually started. I mean, that's not why they did it, but they also had like different splits of, you know, the school. They had the Jean Grey school. They had the Cyclops. It's just like weird.
There was a time, do you remember when they had, I think it was the blue and the gold teams in the comics? Like they had kind of like the Uncanny X-Men and then the X-Men. They were kind of two different runs, and certain characters were in each run, and then they would meet up at times. That was cool. That's the thing that's cool about X-Men is like the characters were so fluid. They would add characters all the time. Some would, like to your point, would leave. I do really like the Archangel story, and there's an X-Men animated series episode that goes through that too.
And talk about another person that went through some stuff. I mean, he's had his natural wings burnt off.
Yep.
Then what's his face gave him mechanical wings.
Yeah.
Then those
Apocalypse.
Apocalypse.
Yep.
Then those gets ripped off. Then he has the ability to switch between mechanical and organic.
Yep.
I mean, that dude went through some stuff too.
Yeah, he did. Speaking of the roster, so the original lineup was just Cyclops, Jean Grey, Beast, Angel, Iceman, and Professor X.
Yes.
And then, some of the most frequent, obviously, Wolverine, Storm, Colossus. You mentioned Colossus, so he was a big member in the comics. Nightcrawler, Rogue, Kitty Pryde, Jubilee. Jubilee is one where I wish we would have seen on screen. I think they took a lot of her elements from the comics and added them to the Rogue character for some reason in the X-Men movies.
Why would they do that? I mean, it's like
it was stupid.
Two completely different
Exactly.
characters. Jubilee had like the little. She could do like the little bombs.
Yeah, like little sparklers almost. Yeah.
So kind of like Dazzler.
Yes.
Kind of a deal. Yeah, they're two completely different levels of character.
But if you remember in the comics and in the animated series, Wolverine kind of takes Jubilee in as like under his wing. Like he has a soft spot for her.
Well, Jubilee and Kitty Pryde, they were like the younger sister to everybody in the mansion, kind of a deal.
Yep. And I mean, and Jubilee had a connection with, Logan. And then, because in the X-Men movies, we saw that same connection, but it was Rogue, which was odd.
Right.
Which I wish they would have, instead of screwing up Rogue, they should have just had Jubilee in the movie.
Right.
Because Rogue was always known as this, kind of Southern belle, sassy.
Right.
She was strong. Now, I don't know if this is the exact origin that happens in the comics, but in the animated series, the way Rogue got the flying ability and her super strength, because Rogue's mutation was simply to absorb energy from other life forces, right?
Well, she touched you. It's like for every second that she touched you, she had that power for like a minute.
Okay.
But for some reason, she did something happened. I forget what the actual interaction was, and strength, invulnerability, and flight became a permanent part of her powers.
In the comic, it was her mom at the time, who was Mystique, convinced her to kill Captain Marvel. And she tried to kill her, put her in like a coma, but absorbed pretty much all of her energy.
Right.
And that stuck with Rogue. And then in the show, there's an interaction where she goes back to see her in the coma, and just her being in her presence allows Carol Danvers to absorb some of her power back and kind of waking up out of the coma, but they both continue with the powers. So I didn't know that until the animated series, but that Rogue got her power, at least in the animated series. I don't know about her comic origin.
Yeah.
But to the point, that was not, like the Rogue we saw in the animated series shouldn't even happen. They should have just had Jubilee in the movie. Yeah. Cable is a member. I love Gambit in the animated series and in a lot of the comics. Emma Frost is one that we saw in the First Class movies. January Jones played her, which I thought she did a pretty good job. Hellfire Club was featured in that movie. Like, did you like X-Men First Class?
No.
Really?
No. Not really. It was entertaining. Again, a lot of these movies are coming out of, first of all, it's hard to portray all those different powers.
Yeah.
Right? Individually. Then it's hard to portray the powers like they did the Avengers and, Infinity War and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's the top.
Right.
Right? But they didn't have that capability
then.
So they did a pretty poor job of, portraying those things. So, and to me, it's like, if you can't do the powers individually properly, why put them in a gang and then misrepresent the entire piece? So I didn't like it from that perspective, because I have like I have some Old Testament expectations when it comes to comic books.
Yeah.
I don't know all the moving pieces, but I know what I like when I see it.
Yeah.
And the way they do these characters, which is why we even have a hidden gem, right? The way they do these characters, I think is a injustice.
Yeah. I thought First Class was pretty good. Sebastian Shaw was in it. Like, you always talk about the Hellfire Club a lot, and we got to see them in their early version. And at that point, Emma Frost was in the Hellfire Club before she joined the X-Men. And Kevin Bacon actually played Sebastian Shaw. I thought he did a pretty good job. But that's another group I'd love to see back in the MCU, like, done properly, Hellfire Club.
Well, since the Christmas special of the Guardians, they went and kidnapped Kevin Bacon.
I think he's out. He can't.
I don't know if he can show up anywhere else anymore.
No, we're going to have to recast that. We're going to have to reboot that part. Banshee's another one.
Oh, dude, I thought Banshee would just kick ass.
Yeah.
Dude. I mean, little, anger issues.
Oh,
But, I mean, that power set, I think that's pretty cool.
Yep. You mentioned Havoc. Havoc was a hidden gem at one point. He was an X-Men, frequent member. I always liked Psylocke. Psylocke was badass.
Yeah. That she had like this psychic dagger.
That
she would like go after people. That was pretty cool.
What did you think of? I think it was Olivia Munn who played her in X-Men Apocalypse, I believe, and I think in Dark Phoenix, maybe. I think maybe she only showed up in one. I thought from a look standpoint, now the script, they didn't give her much to do, but I thought she nailed that part.
I thought the portrayal was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, but like you said, they didn't give her an opportunity to kind of spread her wings as that character.
Right. Yeah, I think she was, let's see, she was in, I think it was only one of the X-Men movies, but she looked the part. But yeah, X-Men, and we've said this before, I'm ready for the MCU to kind of shift to a more X-Men centric story.
Sure.
Put them at the center. There's so much you can do with that,
Oh yeah, I mean, you probably got another 2 decades of content that you can just spin off of the X-Men alone,
right?
And forget about if they do the Fantastic Four properly. You know, that'll be. but
Keyword
so
properly.
I go someplace, dentist maybe. I got my my Crocs on with my superhero things on them, right? And the lady, she's looking at it. She's like, "Oh, I see you got your superhero things on," but then she turns around and she says, "I think they just putting out too much."
Really?
Right now. Yeah. So for somebody that's not, that doesn't talk about it like we do,
right?
To say that there's too many superhero movies out.
Damn.
There's a lot of stuff out, dude.
Shit, even Adrian's dentist knows.
Exactly. So I'm kind of afraid from that perspective.
Yeah.
That they're just putting out too much comic book stuff. That it would just get to the point where everybody's, numb to it and not excited about it at all.
Right.
Which would be a bad time to try to push this X-Men thing the way you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I wonder to what extent has that happened in actual comic books? Is that, because readership is not what it was years ago. And you can argue, well, it's because you got the movies, the shows, maybe. Yeah. But is there, for someone who's never read comics before, it's probably a little overwhelming to try to get into them now.
Yeah. Besides, you also have, the digital platforms. Are people not buying comics? Because when I was buying comics, I mean, that was really the only vehicle that you had, right? And you just devoured anything that came out with the groups and the teams and the personalities that you liked. So, but now you got so many options, and then you got this whole Yu-Gi-Oh and Airbender, and so you got so much competition that's at people's fingertips that it gets diluted. It gets lost, I think. So unless you're actually reaching out and constantly in front of people, which is probably what they're trying to do. Just trying to stay out in front of things in the face of all this other, you got Japanese animation, you got all this other type of content that can be delivered to you instantly ahead of the legacy stuff that is just hard to compete, I think.
Yeah. Dude, I miss the days. You said this last week of you're reading a comic and then you can't wait for that next issue and it's a month away. Right. Fatal Attractions is another X-Men storyline that's great. Me as a kid, I was a big Wolverine fan. We talked about this. I had Batman, I had Wolverine. Those were my two. And that issue where this is when Magneto's living on asteroid M or whatever, and he's coming back and forth. He's a big threat at this time. Something happened, and he's like, fuck all the humans again, He's on that shit again, right?
Again.
Yeah, again. And then there's a scene where they're fighting X-Men versus Magneto, and he rips all the adamantium from Wolverine's body. Yes. You remember this comic panel? Dude, this is one of the... as a kid, Adrian, I'm probably, I don't know when this came out, I'm probably 10, 12 years old, and I didn't buy a lot of comics, but I would go to the grocery store with my mom when she'd go grocery shopping, and I'd go to the turnstile and read all the new shit. I remember sitting at that turnstile and reading that comic and just getting to that panel and, my jaws dropped, shit. Now, obviously, I know it's a character in a comic, but you get tied to these characters, and then you're like, dude, what happens next? Wolverine doesn't have his claws because he's your favorite. And then you're like, dude, if he's got no claws, he's got no adamantium, he's not the unstoppable Wolverine anymore. Maybe I need to, I got to jump on someone else's bandwagon. But that, as a kid, you're like, holy shit, that had me hooked. Dude.
Right. But then you got to wait a month to find out.
Exactly.
So, but the other thing about it is when I got introduced to Wolverine, I didn't know. I just thought he had adamantium claws.
We all did, yeah.
Not adamantium over bones
Correct.
in his body, in other words, he had the claws without the adamantium.
Yeah.
They're now just covered with metal. I didn't know that.
Right.
So that was a new twist. But yeah, when I saw that, I was like, dude, wow.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, okay, so what happens?
Yeah.
Now you're sitting on this stuff for like a whole month.
Yep.
It was torture, dude. It was torture.
It was, dude. But that's where we learned about the bone claws because they were never shown prior to that. So seeing that, it's like a whole new take on Wolverine.
Right.
And then if you remember, I forget why, but after the adamantium being removed, I think his mutation kind of continued or whatever, and he turned more feral. You remember that Wolverine?
I don't, but
Oh, dude, you got to check it out. He was turning more into this animalistic Wolverine. Like his hair started growing long. He was crouched over more.
I think I've seen flashes of that, but I didn't get into the backstory of as to why. But sure.
Yeah, it was cool. And I think it had something to do. And again, we're not experts, so this could be completely wrong. But I think the adamantium did something to his mutation that kind of paused it or slowed it down. And once it was removed, it just continued, which made him kind of turn more into this feral, like animalistic version of Wolverine.
So the adamantium increased his power per se as a mutant.
Yeah.
It prevented him from being psychotic, but ultimately it kills him.
True. Yeah. Yep.
I mean, this stuff is like, they should just make a character called Adamantium because clearly this stuff is living, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it has this effect on him. On one side, it's keeping him from being, bonkers like Sabretooth to a degree, right? Because Sabretooth, he's always in the rage. Wolverine has to get into the rage, into the berserker mode, right?
Correct.
And then it basically poisons him later on, even though he's pretty much immortal.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, that's a good compare. It was a little more Sabretooth-esque because Sabretooth is more animalistic, right? But he also doesn't have the adamantium.
Right.
So it did bring Wolverine closer to Sabretooth having his adamantium removed.
Wow.
Yeah. But to your point, is it living? Well, I mean, it's an alien metal, right?
Okay.
It was, I believe it was like a meteorite or some shit that brought it to Earth in the comics. I don't think it was just here.
Right.
Almost like the Venom symbiote, like it came from another planet, so it could have a lot more to what meets the eye, I guess.
Unlike
Vibranium,
which only existed in I only thought up until like the second Black Panther, which is not really the Black Panther. I only thought it existed in Wakanda, but apparently it existed wherever this new version of Namor came from.
Yeah.
So, which is weird too, but whatever.
Well, there is our X-Men open discussion. Basically, go check out some X-Men stuff. But I agree with a lot of the stories you mentioned, Dark Phoenix, or even the original Phoenix, then the Dark Phoenix, Days of Future Past. There's so many great comic stories in the X-Men.
Right. The Corsair thing.
Yes.
It was so vast. It touched so much stuff. And it's like you just, oh my God, who's here now? But it was pretty cool.
Yeah. And in a lot of these events like Civil War, like even Devil's Reign, like House of M, Avengers Assembled, X-Men play a big role in a lot of these stories and these big events. There's an X-Men versus Avengers storyline that's really cool where Cyclops and a few other people actually get the Phoenix power, and they end up kind of almost like a version of, in those movies where AI becomes too smart and wants to kill the humans, the Phoenix power kind of awaken a lot of insight inside of Cyclops and a few others, and they end up wanting to eliminate some other mutants and heroes or whatnot. So, and then the Avengers fight. So there's just so many X-Men comics that are great.
We talk about, I talked about like the this classification Omega level.
Yeah.
I think so. Charles Xavier, in his teaching, right, he also teaches them not to be, because all of them in their own right are extremely powerful.
Correct.
Even, Scott, Cyclops.
Yeah.
I mean, if these guys just unleashed, right, which is why the X-Men, like it would only take one of them to defeat the whole entire Justice League. If they unleashed, I think in their training, they have mental limits because of Xavier.
Yeah.
Being the do-gooder, and all this other kind of stuff. I think if they just unleashed, dude, it would be just hell on earth for a lot of other characters.
Yep, especially the Justice League. All right, moving on. We're going to wrap up with, this is actually a fan favorite, okay? This is called We Respond.
Okay.
So we may answer some questions. We may respond to some of your great comments. We may respond to some of your dumbass comments because, you know, some of y'all, unfortunately, leave some dumbass comments. I mean, it is what it is, right? This one, we got CME SPO 4163 says, great takes. I agree with that. We have some great. What do you think we have great takes, Adrian?
Enough said.
Yeah, enough said. Samuel DN7Q something or another says, holy crap, I should watch the whole pod before commenting. Yeah, absolutely. Right. You definitely should watch the whole pod before commenting. What else we got here? Dude, there's a lot. So let's go to some TikTok stuff. My man here, Anthony, so it's like Anthony, but Anthony, right? 3382 says, bruh, do y'all hate DC? With a bunch of laughing emojis here. Also,
no,
do you?
We don't.
We don't. Also, there's more, Adrian. Also, do you hate the Snyderverse? With like 8 question marks, maybe 3. Please tell me what you liked about it. What did I like about the Snyderverse, Adrian? You know what I liked? When it was canceled.
I like when the movie ended.
Yes, definitely. But all jokes aside, Anthony, what I liked about the Spider-Verse, I liked Ben Affleck's portrayal of Batman.
Snyderverse, not Spider-Verse.
So, shit. Did I say Spider-Verse?
You said Spider-Verse.
Damn
That's
it.
okay.
We'll cut that out of the edited version or not. So to answer we'll just redo it in live time. So we're going back to the future. Anthony, what I hated about what I liked about the Snyderverse was I liked Ben Affleck's Batman portrayal. I thought that was cool. I liked Henry Cavill as Superman.
Sure.
I thought he did a good job there. Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot, loved. So I liked a lot of the portrayals. I didn't like Ezra Miller as Flash.
Of course.
Cyborg was decent.
Yeah.
It was cool. But so I liked those portrayals. I just didn't like much of the story, to be honest. Right. And I didn't like the whole I mean, we've talked enough about Martha here. That killed it for me. I didn't like Batman killing everybody. That was a little much for me. I didn't like the rush to create the Justice League after like a movie and a half. I didn't like that. So I didn't think the villains Steppenwolf and Darkseid were that interesting, to be honest. And I hated Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. So there's a lot of things I didn't like. But what about you? What did you like about the Snyderverse?
Everything you said, I agree with.
Okay.
There's no agree to disagree. I agree with pretty much everything that you said.
All right.
You nailed it for me.
And you agree with the fact that one of the things you loved about the Snyderverse was when it ended?
Yes.
Okay. There you go. Aaron Pettis says, why are you excited about the Fantastic Four? Why are you excited about the Fantastic Four?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm excited about it because they've done a poor job of portraying the Fantastic Four. This is a great team. A lot of dynamic stuff about them, a lot of range. They've done a lot of stuff. I mean, if you think about the Avengers and all their adventures, and the Guardians of the Galaxy and all their adventures, the X-Men and all their adventures, the Fantastic Four, that team alone has probably eclipsed, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But they just haven't been portrayed properly in live action.
Right, ever.
So I want redemption for them because they were one of my favorite comic book teams.
Yep.
And that's basically it. Redemption for them, which is why I'm excited about
basically, they have really good comic stories.
Oh, absolutely.
So you see the potential. It's kind of like my deal with the X-Men. I see the potential there.
Yep.
And with what the MCU did with the Avengers, I think they could do an amazing thing with Fantastic Four and the X-Men together.
Right. So they have proven that they can do it.
Correct.
It's just they need to do it with these two teams.
Absolutely. There you have it. Kat with 2 T's says, and now this is in response to a video we put out where we were talking about sequels that are better than the original movie.
Right.
Across the Spider-Verse is the one we spoke about, and we said that it usually doesn't happen, right? So Kat with 2 T's says, here's one. Dune 2 absolutely wipes the floor with the first Dune. Cinematic masterpiece. I've not seen Dune 2. I couldn't get through Dune, to be honest. Have you seen this movie?
I couldn't get through the original Doom. It was just, it's so long. What was like a 13.5-hour movie or
So
something
yeah,
like
it's
that?
like the Snyder cut.
I couldn't do it. I'm sure you're right, Cat with two T's.
Maybe.
It's just that I couldn't get through the first one.
No.
I couldn't get through the original Doom.
Yeah.
I couldn't get through the first remake of Doom, and I'm not even going to try to do Doom 2. So,
dude, so I tried watching Dune, not the old one,
Mm-hmm.
the latest one, the first one, twice. The first time I got 10 minutes in, and I'm like, this movie's never going to start. And then the second time, dude, I got like probably a half hour in, and I was like, oh, this movie's still not going to start. They just keep showing me bits and pieces of shit that I don't know what the hell it connect. It's way too slow for me.
Right.
And you're like, maybe you're the ADHD generation. Maybe, dude. I don't know. But that shit moves, and it's not in slow-mo. Could you imagine if if we got a Snyder cut of Doom?
Oh, my God.
That movie would be 36 hours long.
Right. The only thing I remember about the remake of Doom was when Jason Momoa's character got killed in some tunnel.
Yeah.
And then the main character, they were out in the desert and some giant worm came up and they got in the helicopter and flew away.
Yeah.
That's all I remember. That's all I can stomach.
Sounds
it's like
great.
trying to watch Moon Knight, dude.
Easy.
I can't do it, man.
I pick Moon Knight over Dune any day of the week.
I gotta take your word for it.
We talked about the Fast Crew basically being superheroes. So my man Gio, so he's got his first name and his middle name's the same. Gio, my man says the Fast Crew never dies, so they're easily wiping out DC. He's saying whole DC.
Wow.
I agree.
I agree. Thumbs up.
Yeah, thumbs up to that one, dude. He should be on thumbs up or thumbs down. Let's see. Oh, this is a long-winded one here. Tiger Suit 24. So, do you think he really has a tiger suit?
What?
Do you think he really has a tiger suit since he named himself Tiger Suit?
If you name yourself Tiger, I hope it's.
I hope you do too. Well, let's see Tiger Suit. Anyways, Patrick Stewart should have never reprised his role after Logan. Definitely not in Doctor Strange. The whole Illuminati should have been cut. They literally shown them just to get killed. Didn't further the story. Basically, a lot of stuff that we've said. My man agrees with. But the statement that Patrick Stewart should have never reprised his role after Logan. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Yes.
And I've said that. I mean, at some point when you just start looking geriatric in a movie that they can really do anything.
You're supposed to say with all due respect.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
It's no. I mean, even like in that Super Bowl commercial, I was like, I just wanted to cringe. I feel so bad.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, just don't.
Right.
Just don't anymore.
Yo, take a page out of Jack Nicholson's book where he was like, I retired from acting.
Right.
I'm too old. He's going to show up at the Lakers game every once in a while. You see him in the crowd, but he's like, I'm done, dude. I don't want to be on stage 80 years old looking like a fool.
Exactly.
You know, unless you're playing like someone in a nursing home.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I agree with that statement too, Tiger Suit 24. Patrick Stewart should have never reprised his role after Logan, and especially not in that damn Doctor Strange movie where they just wasted him.
Yeah.
You know? Samuel DN7Q says, Jon Stewart is my favorite Lantern. I thought they did him well in the DCAU. I didn't know that his constructs were so complicated, well, because of his architectural background. Well, Samuel, you learned that from my man Adrian here on Hidden Gem, right? Is he your favorite Lantern as well?
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Hal Jordan, kind of kicked it off as far as the Green Lantern is concerned. And according to the Guardians, Hal Jordan is one of the greatest Green Lanterns in the universe, and they kind of actually made fun of that.
Yeah.
When Jon Stewart came in, it was like because they walked into some Green Lantern like museum, and it was like Hal Jordan, the greatest Green Lantern. And he's like, really? I think he wanted to like throw up or something. But yeah, definitely because the main thing that makes him my favorite is that the Green Lantern, the constructs that they make, the power that they put out is based on their will.
Okay.
And Jon Stewart's will is supposedly more powerful than the ring can handle.
Wow.
So that's what makes him kick ass to me.
Yeah. Nice.
And then there's the whole black thing.
Right, yeah. So no, I agree. Thumbs up and I agree. Both. 5 Trey says Heath Ledger made The Dark Knight what it was, so Heath Ledger made The Dark Knight what it was, so I credit it as a Joker film. I agree.
agree. I mean, Batman really is a detective movie.
Yeah.
So the cops can only be in a movie. The cops can only be as cool or infamous or famous as the villains.
Mm-hmm.
And in this particular case, it's just like with Echo.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was a Fisk movie.
Yeah, sure.
You know, not an Echo movie.
Right.
So this was a Joker movie.
It was.
Batman movie that had Batman in it. So
yeah.
But either way, it's cool.
Yep, we're cool with it.
We got to see the best Batman ever, Christian Bale.
Oh, damn! See, you had to. You know what? I'm not even. I'm gonna pretend you didn't say that. Okay, I'm just gonna move on to what Jesus Mahea says on TikTok. Bro, Snyder Justice League is not much better than the original Justice League. Logan is a masterpiece. My man, I agree.
Yep, there you go.
Enough said. Sideshow Fred says, I get it. Y'all are just trying to troll us. Very good joke. No, Sideshow Fred. You are the joke. You are definitely a joke, my friend.
Hence the name.
Yeah,
Sideshow.
exactly. What else we got here? So, Cartoon Plug says, any Justice League member solos the 7. No, dude, you're crazy. No.
Wait, what was that?
Any Justice League member solos the 7.
The entire 7.
Yep, the entire 7.
Any single Justice League member solos the entire 7.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll just.
Hey, this is all made up, right?
Right. Yeah,
so,
true.
I mean, so in his world, he wrote, this one Justice League member solo in the whole 7. Cool. We'll leave it at that.
Right. Yeah, we'll pretend you didn't say that. What you should do is go to onlycomicsmerch.com. Andrew says, we don't need a Scarlet Witch solo film. She's already had WandaVision and Doctor Strange 3. They need to focus more on their bigger IPs, Fantastic Four, X-Men, right, and continue Spider-Man with a new director. I agree with the last part. They do need to continue with those. But Scarlet Witch is a massive X-Men character as well. She ties into a lot of those stories there with Magneto and the whole deal. And I feel like there's still a lot more to tell with her because we've seen Wanda for so long. We've only seen Scarlet Witch for like a few episodes of WandaVision and a little bit of Doctor Strange. I think Scarlet Witch needs her own solo, so I don't agree with Andrew.
I can agree with him in that, there's so much other real estate that we can explore outside of something that's already been established. So if it's, do we put out another Wanda or Scarlet Witch movie or expand these other comics? I'm about the expansion.
Yeah.
But I think, a Scarlet Witch film could also fit.
Yeah, I think there's space for it, right? I don't think that it's like one or the other here. So Nate 296 says, my question to the show would be, what comic, movie, or TV show would you like to see created? Love the show. Continue the great content. Well, thank you, Nate. We will continue the great content. So is there a comic show or movie that has not been announced that you say, I'd love to see this created for a specific character?
I mean, I'm really down for anything,
Yeah.
Any of the X-Men things. What I would like to see, actually, is anything that had to do with like Alpha Flight. I would like to see maybe the Shi'ar Empire explored more in the X-Men. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I like to see, like I said before, like a Superman Black. Not a black Superman, but just a raw Superman where his powers are. I mean, Henry Cavill does it as far as the look.
Right.
But I'm just talking about just the raw, unadulterated powers. I would love to see that.
Yep.
I would love to see
That'd be
somebody
cool.
finally do something. Like, he got amnesia and woke up on a planet as their ruler or something. And he's just kicking ass. Kind of like a war world, but with Superman in it. Or like they did the Hulk, where he lost his memory.
Yes.
I would like to see that version of a Superman.
I gotcha. Speaking of, I mean, there's so many that just kind of popped in my mind as you're going. You mentioned the Hulk. I'd love to see a real Hulk like series of movies with the full rage, like not this half Bruce Banner hybrid. I'd love to see Hulk back with the rage. Yeah, I'd love to see that. Now, from an X-Men standpoint, I'd love to see Night of the Sentinels story adapted in live action. I'd love to see an X-Men story that's centered around Cyclops, Havoc, and Corsair. The whole separation in the plane crash and then him thinking that his parents died and then reconnecting afterwards. Cool. I'd love to see that. Even what we were mentioning earlier, the Fatal Attractions story. I'd love to see them somehow bring that scene on screen where Magneto removes the adamantium from Wolverine's body. Yeah. That could be an amazing story. So my stuff's probably geared a lot towards X-Men. Dude, I would, and this is, I don't think we'd ever see this, but watching the Daredevil show makes me want a Batman show just like that.
Absolutely.
That brutal. And now the Batman is close, but I mean more grounded. I want to see Bruce coming back with a broken collarbone and shit, and, Alfred patching him up. And, I'd love to see it at that grounded level,
Okay.
What else we got here? So we have a couple more, Adrian. Here's one. We've answered this, but might as well answer it again. What is the best Batman movie? I'm curious. Mine, I say the Batman.
Okay, the Batman is the greatest Batman movie.
You don't agree with me. We know you.
Edward is the best Batman ever.
Edward.
Can we put this to rest?
Adrian is the Dark Knight, if you couldn't tell. God Mode 277 says, who should be the next Wolverine for the new X-Men movie? Wish Tom Hardy would have played Wolverine. How do you feel about Tom Hardy playing Wolverine?
No.
I don't know who should play him.
I don't either. My guy is currently playing Homelander. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's your opinion. You think Anthony Starr, I think.
Yeah. So I don't know the pool of actors out there now. I'm sure there's somebody that embodies him or can take over the mantle after Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
But it's not Tom Cruise.
No, it's definitely not. Even though he has the height, it's definitely not Tom Cruise.
Exactly.
I would, quick choice. You said Anthony Starr from The Boys. I actually would like to see Carl Urban from The Boys. Butcher, Billy the Butcher, play Wolverine.
He's too tall, man.
True. Yeah.
Outside of that, I agree.
The look,
the look.
But yeah, we already had. Yeah, I mean, it's hard because out of the shorter folks, you pretty much have Tom Cruise or Tom Hardy. All the Toms, I guess. But if we now the other thing they could do is, I understand Carl Urban's taller. There's ways to shoot things to make the other actors look taller than him. They do it all the time.
Right, just like when Tom Cruise walks into a movie, he's on a platform
while
everybody else is on the regular floor.
He's pretty much on stilts, I think. We're big Tom Cruise fans, if you couldn't tell. So anyway, last two, we got the Lord of Gaming 1. Wow, okay. The Lord of Gaming. Says, tell us the best superhero movie in your opinion. We've said this before. I say Across the Spider-Verse currently.
Agree.
And then the last one, I Am King 881 says, love the podcast.
Nice.
I agree. You agree with that?
I agree with
that. Me too. Well, there you have it. If you've not gone to the merch site already, go check that out now, onlycomicsmerch.com. Another great week here on Only Comics. Adrian, appreciate you coming in. Appreciate your hidden gem.
Always.
And you know where to find us next week. Next week, I'll have some more X-Men animated series suggestions. You'll have another hidden gem for us. And we're going to do, Adrian, an independent comic review. Okay. So I had someone reach out to us, a fan of the shows, and they have a comic book that is titled, what is the name of this? It's a zombie-esque Here Walks Monsters. So I kind of browsed through a little bit. Looks cool. Artwork looks pretty cool.
Okay. So
we'll do a little read-through before next week, and then come back here and let you know, hey, if you should check it out or not, and provide some feedback for, a fan of the show.
Sure.
If you're out there, independent comic creator, and you would love our review of your comic for some reason, send it over to us. We'd be more than happy to check it out, We did one for our friends at Kindred Comics a few weeks back with their Extra Man, So I'm still waiting for the second issue. They haven't sent it to us yet.
That's okay.
But it is okay. We will survive. But another great week. Adrian, thanks for coming in.
Always, man.
Another week with no Box of Joe. So hopefully that does not continue next week. But we appreciate you guys checking us out, dropping the comments. Let us know. Did you like this? Did you not? Did you agree with us? Of course you did. Why wouldn't you? Who wouldn't agree with us? Hit the subscribe button and come back here next week on Only Comics. We'll see you there.